going live. That one is like a 10.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we're live. Um, my name is Van Celadon. I'm the operations manager here at Celadon Law. We're at another episode of the podcast Life of Celadon Law. Today I have two very special guests today with me. I have attorney Daniel Fair and I have our senior paralegal Nirson da Silva joining us as well. We'll be talking specifically in the employment visas. Attorney Dan specializes in that area, and Nirson as well. He's been working with, in this area for a few years as well, right, Nirson?
That's right.
So I have here Attorney Daniel. If you want to say hello to the public,
Hello.
to the viewers, yes, Attorney Dan. Then we have Nirson here as well.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for joining. I know both of you are very busy, and taking the time to make sure that, set this time aside to be able to bring some very good information to the public, in regards to employment-based visa. I want to start off first in giving an opportunity for each one of you to introduce yourselves. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourselves, how you became to work in the immigration law field. And I'll start off with Attorney Daniel first. Attorney Daniel, how did you start? And I mean, if you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Van. So how did I get started? So going back to law school, I worked as a law clerk for a small firm in Boston that did a mix of immigration and real estate title work.
Oh, wow.
And I actually was brought on to do more of the title work stuff, but just along the way gained some experience doing, working on immigration-related cases. That was in 2009, which was not a great time. So basically, when I left law school, I had sort of two areas of experience.
Right.
One would be real estate transactional work,
Okay.
and the other was immigration. And if you recall, 2009 was not a great time to be in the real estate transactional world.
Yes.
There's
I
a lot of
remember.
foreclosure.
Yeah.
And I remember going to an interview and being kind of led through levels of bulletproof doors.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of, and I realized, I don't think I want to do this.
Yeah.
The only thing they were doing in those days was mostly foreclosure work.
Yes.
I really didn't. That's not what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I took a job with an immigration firm and just sort of remained with that for
Wow.
going back to 2009. So
Wow. So that's been more than 10 years.
yeah,
You've been in the field, right?
yeah. And it hasn't been all employment based. There's been some employment based, some removal of defense, which we obviously do a lot of here.
Yes.
A lot of family based. So
Yes.
kind of a variety.
Exactly. Yes. And how about you, Nirson? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this industry? I know you've been working with immigration law firms for about more than 10 years, I believe.
Yeah, right about. Feels like a job interview all over again, But hey, everyone, my name is Nirson da Silva. So I'm originally from Milford, Mass, and first generation American. My parents are Brazilian, and the way I got into immigration kind of fell in my lap.
Right.
I don't think it was planned that way, but in the Brazilian community, there's a lot of people that need immigration assistance, help. So I grew up with people talking about immigration law, immigration issues.
Yes.
So it seemed like it was something interesting that I wanted to, learn a little more about so I can help people. And that's what the intuition was, to help people and, be able to leverage my Portuguese
Yes.
skills, my cultural sensitivity, I know the culture and I can relate to the people. And, so after college, my first big boy job was at an immigration law firm, you
Yeah.
know. So and here I am, you know, still
Great.
doing
great.
immigration law. Yeah,
And where in Brazil are your parents from?
Minas.
Minas Gerais.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. We have a large population here
Yeah,
from Minas Gerais. That's good. That's
yeah.
good. And then
Mineiros are explorers, you know.
yeah.
They like to get
Yeah,
out
the,
there.
the first ones I remember when we arrived here back in '92. We met this lady that has helped our family, because we were just got here in '92. We didn't know anyone.
Hmm.
But this lady already passed away, but she was here already since the '70s,
Wow.
the early '70s. Yeah, so yeah, and she's from Minas. So you're
Really?
right. They're the first ones to
Yeah.
arrive in the U.S. Most likely anywhere around the world. The people
Yeah.
from Minas.
Was she from Valadares?
Yes, from
Ah.
Valadares. Yeah, everyone is from Valadares. Yeah.
But now I think we're getting a lot of like Brazilians from the south,
Yes.
which wasn't like a typical thing.
No,
We-
yeah, the last few years
Yeah, Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul.
Yes.
So, you know,
yes,
we're seeing
which it
more.
was unheard of
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago.
Yep.
And I know Dan is not from Brazil, right, Dan? Where were you originally from then?
Well, I grew up mostly in Maine. I was born in northern Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Yes, yes. So,
He's a Viking.
yeah, Viking fan. So then, I'd like to ask you first, then Nilsson, you can fill in as well, since regarding what are the most popular employment visa options available for nationals looking to work in the U.S.?
So if we're talking non-immigrant visa, so I would probably say H-1B and L-1 would be the most common.
Good. Can you dive in a little bit? What does it mean, H-1B and
So an H-1B would be an employment-based non-immigrant visa. In other words, a non-permanent visa, someone who's coming here for a limited period of time to work in a specialty occupation, meaning an occupation requiring at least a bachelor's degree
okay?
in a specific field. So the tech industry relies heavily on the H-1B category.
Yes.
The L1 would be an intercompany transferee. So that would be somebody who has worked previously abroad for a company that has a presence in the United States, and essentially the U.S. location wants to bring them over again for a limited period of time.
I see. I see. And what have you seen lately? More of in the last couple of years now, since post-pandemic time, or pre-pandemic time, was there a difference in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's been both have been heavily used for a long time.
I see. I see.
I think people like the H-1B visas as well. So like most foreign nationals come to the United States. The ones that come on an L1, for example, they try to get on the H-1B train fairly quickly. It's a pretty flexible visa as well.
Right,
You can do certain things that you can't do with other visa types. For example, you can pay like a premium processing fee, and then they'll
Yes.
adjudicate your petition within 15 days, basically.
Yes.
So that's a good thing to have. There's portability, so if you come in on an L1, you're stuck with that employer. You can't really, if you're
Change employers.
yeah, if you come in and you're working for Google, you can't just start working for Facebook.
Okay.
And with the H-1B, you have a little more flexibility, and you
Okay.
can,
I see.
obviously you have to, your prospective employer needs to file a new petition each time, but you have the flexibility to move around and.
Oh, that's good to know. That's
Yeah.
good to know. And I know we, with our clients here, we do get a lot of calls, people asking for consultation because let's say they own a large painting business or landscaping business. What would you recommend, for those that once they business grow, they get more employees in, and sometimes they want to keep employees, the good employees, but a lot of the employees they could be not have any legal status in the U.S., but they want to sponsor them in order. What would you recommend for those that they start thinking about that going into sponsoring their own employees? What would you recommend the steps would be?
Yeah. So the I guess one of the drawbacks of the employment-based visa category is that history of immigration violations, unauthorized employment,
Yep.
illegal, unlawful presence, and entry without inspection. Those are kind of red flags that we're
Yes.
if we're analyzing a case for a prospective client. Those are kind of the three questions that I'm going to lead off with. Is
Yes.
whether if the person is here, if they are here, then how did they get here? Did they cross the border? Did
Yeah.
they arrive with a visa? What is their current status? Are they currently working? If it's a situation where somebody's entered without inspection, or they arrived, overstayed their visa, and started working,
Yes.
that's generally problematic.
Yes.
So it may not work for that particular candidate.
Right.
If it's the case that it's a U.S. employer that is just having difficulty hiring and retaining people, and there is not sufficient. There aren't available U.S. workers for
Right,
a
right.
particular field, whatever it may
Yes.
be. The advice would be to maybe look to understand that there are there are hurdles to
Yes.
doing any kind of employment-based case. Financial time constraints. There's work involved.
Yes.
It's not easy to hire somebody from abroad to come
Yeah.
into the U.S.
Right.
But sometimes that's the only option.
The only option. Correct.
And so sometimes it makes sense to look abroad, before somebody arrives, or if they're already here, to ensure that they already have a non-immigrant status,
Right.
such as H-1B or L-1,
Mm-hmm.
even like a student visa status, provided they're in all cases that they're in compliance with their existing visa status. So.
Got it. And I mean so it does it what we always say, look to get a consultation with the firm. That's every case is different, right? It doesn't mean the other guy did one way it's gonna work for you. So what we advise is always call the office. We'll schedule a consultation with you one-on-one with Attorney Daniel, and he'll be able to let you know what are his thoughts and legal advice that he can help you with. Nirsan, what are some of the questions that you get a lot when you're doing the intakes? Because I know you do a lot of these intakes with Attorney Daniel. What are the most common questions that you get that you can think of?
Yeah, that's it all depends on, what the client is calling about. Some clients are calling interested in asylum, some in work visas, but I'd say like probably the most common work visa question would be, how quickly am I gonna get this visa, maybe,
Yeah.
or like everyone wants to know the basic requirements as well. But yeah, I don't think there's anything too complex. Like you said, each case is different, and like Dan was saying, like how did you come in? What's your current
Yes.
status? What's your immigration history? Like all that, comes into play. So it needs to be carefully evaluated. But yeah, I think the most common questions are that, how quickly, is this
Yeah.
process going to take, and how much?
That's a very common question,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah.
Attorney Dan, can you explain the process and timeline for an employment sponsored green card? What challenges applicants commonly face?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about some of it.
Yes.
Whether the person is in or out of status,
Right, right.
whether there's been a history of violations. But assuming all that checks out, so I can give a kind of a quick overview. I don't want to, bog us down too much, but so it's sort of a two-phase process. The initial phase would be the labor certification involving the Department of Labor,
Okay.
where DOL has to certify that there are no willing and able U.S. workers to fill a position. So there has to be a test of the labor market, and then the actual labor cert application has to be filed and reviewed and signed off by DOL. So normally that process breaks down into, so initially we'll sit down with the employer and figure out, what does this job involve? What are the actual requirements, and kind of map that to a particular occupation. And then from there, we'll file a prevailing wage in order to figure out what the prevailing wage is
Yes.
for the area of intended employment. From that, we'll normally do the recruitment, and if all that checks out, after we run the recruitment, we'll file the PERM, the labor certification, and then keep our fingers crossed that we don't get an audit or
Yes.
or ordered to do supervised recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's done, and again, that process takes on the order of like 2 years to get the prevailing wage, get the prevailing wage, run the recruitment, get the
Yes.
labor cert approved. Right now, yeah, on the order of 2 years.
About 2 years.
So once that's done, then we would either file the I-140, which would be the employment-based petition, be the equivalent of the I-130, which is the family-based petition,
Yes.
if somebody's doing a family-based process.
Okay.
If it happens that the priority date is current, in other words, that that there's an immediately available visa, they can go ahead, and they're here in the U.S. and they're in status. There's no issues there. They don't have to do consular processing or anything. We can file for the green card with the I-140.
Okay.
But sometimes it's a matter of filing the I-140 first, and then just waiting until we're able to file the actual green card application. So during all that, the person, if they're in the U.S., they have to ensure that they're able to maintain status,
I see.
which is often where the H-1B and the L-1 or other
Mhm.
non-immigrant statuses come into play. If that's not possible, sometimes it does require a departure.
Okay.
Not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of people that get scared if it gets to that part. Right?
Yeah. I guess.
What would you say in
well,
that case?
the key thing, if there's no history of violations,
Okay.
and they have a pending, there's an I-140, and there's no way to bridge their status until they're able to file the green card. Consular processing is essentially the same process.
Yes.
It happens abroad. It's the same end result that
Okay.
the person receives a green card.
Right. And usually, what's the time frame? Like, if it gets to that, because I know a lot of we've seen with clients, one of the main questions is, how long do I have? Because they have jobs here, they have family, a lot of times investments. What is usually the time frame? I mean, is there a specific time frame or an average time frame?
Typically 2 years or so, right?
Yeah, I mean, it varies a lot.
Varies,
Yeah, I mean, for Brazil, the priority dates aren't too
No.
retrogressed,
Mm-hmm.
meaning there isn't too much of a wait for an available visa.
Okay.
Even in the unskilled worker category,
Okay.
which would be there's like a tiered system. So there's
Okay.
EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4. EB meaning employment based.
Okay.
So if you're talking about like an unskilled position, even those there's a little bit of a wait. It is a few years, but when you figure that by the time you've filed the labor certification and received that, and the priority date is established on the date that the labor certification is filed.
Okay.
By the time that's reviewed and approved, even in the lowest priority category, which would be unskilled workers,
Okay.
they're likely going to have a couple of years
Okay.
to wait. But professional, like the professional, the skilled worker,
Mm-hmm.
or the like EB2, which would be like a requiring the equivalent of a U.S.
Okay.
master's degree. That generally is not going to even have a wait time. So,
Okay. Pretty much faster.
Yeah, but it's also a good idea for foreign nationals in non-immigrant visa, with a non-immigrant visa, uh, initiate the perm process as quickly as possible because you have limited time in each visa
Oh, okay.
category. For example, you only get 6 years of H-1B,
Okay.
5 years of L-1B,
Okay.
7 years of L-1A.
Yes.
So sometimes you're limited as to like how long you're allowed to stay in the United
Yes.
States. So you have that window, to
Make sure
finally-
you use that window wisely as soon
Yeah.
as you.
yeah, don't wait, until last minute, or else you're
Yeah.
gonna have to consular process like Dan mentioned
Right.
earlier,
Right. Right.
which is not the end of the world, but I
Yeah.
think people, once they
Most of the clients I've seen that they don't want to come
Yeah.
to that. Right. It's
Yeah.
kind of like.
yeah, but in the employment-based world, it's less messy, and like if you go to the other side of the immigration world, which is
Yeah.
family-based stuff or like removal defense, usually when a foreign national has to depart in consular process, there's usually consequences with that.
Right.
You're going to need a waiver. You can't come back for 10 years or whatever. So there's more complications
Yes.
usually. So, but in the employment-based side, you don't typically see stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So it's not as high stakes.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I do have a question because I know we get a lot of these calls at the firm too. As you know, Massachusetts, so many universities, colleges, and what were your suggestions to those that are on F1 visas?
yeah, I mean,
and they want to transition into employment. What are your guidelines, your suggestions? What would you say to those folks?
yeah, I mean, take the time that you're here
Mhm.
to take that opportunity to network.
Yes.
Generally, with an employment-based case, you're going to need an employer sponsor.
Right.
So it's take the time to network, to build a relationship with
Right.
prospective employers.
Right.
Yeah, and there's generally, if let's say you're here on a bachelor's degree or like especially like a STEM
Mm-hmm.
type of degree program, you have the option for OPT, just like it's a form of work authorization that is issued typically at the end. There's CPT and OPT without
Okay.
getting in the weeds too much.
Okay.
OPT would be at the end of after you've completed your program.
Yes.
You have a period of time where you can work for a prospective employer.
Right.
So that's always a good opportunity to try to build that relationship.
Yes.
And sort of make yourself indispensable so that
So those that are here in first year, don't wait until the last year.
yeah.
Start looking for building networks.
Yeah. And that is one of the ways that people bridge to a green card process.
Yes.
The other would be, for example, like what Nirsan was saying about coming in on an H or an L1, and then bridging to a green card process from there.
Okay.
But the student visa, using that as an opportunity to build a relationship with a prospective sponsor is another
Right.
sort of path, I guess.
Right. And what would you? Because I know. Let's talk about something. I know that. Sometimes they're people here on student visas, and they don't have parents that can afford. A lot of times they come in on a scholarship. They can write it out through the scholarship. Not needing to work. But what happens if someone's in a student visa and they want to work, but they don't want to wait until the right way, the process of what would you recommend? What would you guys recommend that person do?
you have to wait. You can't
Yes.
work without authorization.
Right.
Because one of the things, you need to maintain status. And if you're working without status, you're not maintaining that status. If you're coming to the United States on an F1, you're coming to study, and you shouldn't be working without work authorization. Like Dan said, there are times during the F1 process where you can apply for work authorization, where you can, apply those skills you learned in the classroom
Yes.
with an employer. You study software engineering or something like that.
Yes.
Get a coding job or software engineer
Yes.
job to apply those skills.
Right.
And so wait, don't
Yeah.
work without work authorization, because you're setting yourself up for failure if you do that.
Yes.
It's-
It cause serious consequences, I would say. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sometimes if somebody is here in the U.S., they can apply for CPT. There are sort of limited options for employment.
Okay.
I guess the biggest advice would be to work with the school's international office,
Okay.
and to make sure that if it's a CPT program, I don't know if yeah, I guess that would be the advice is
Right.
to upon arrival you should have a meeting with the international office to see what options you have.
And study STEM,
Yeah.
STEM,
Okay. Awesome.
science, technology, engineering,
Yes.
and math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how you get these specialty occupation visas.
Yes.
Studying these, STEM basically.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. I don't want to dive into another topic that much because I know we're almost running out of time here. I know the conversation can keep going for a long time. I know a lot of our clients then, especially I would say in the Brazilian community, we get calls for, people, they interest on the religious visa. What are your recommendations if someone, let's say a church leader, a minister, a pastor, and they've been here legally, or a lot of times they beyond their stay visa in the U.S. What would you recommend to them? What are the steps that you would recommend? Of course, making a consultation with an attorney, immigration attorney. But what are the steps that you would recommend that person do?
Yeah, that is probably a bigger conversation. Probably
Yes.
Maybe another podcast.
Absolutely.
But it's sort of the same initial questions apply, whether there's a history of violations.
Right.
That it's still within R1, still falls within the employment
Yes.
realm, and you still have those issues of unauthorized employment, unlawful presence that are problematic. However, so a lot of times the R1 is initiated while somebody's abroad.
Okay.
And there is a U.S. church that maybe has an affiliation with a church in Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
and wants to kind of establish itself, and may rely on basically seek to bring a pastor or whatever the terminology.
Musician. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be somebody who is it's got to be a religious occupation.
Right.
So it can't be somebody coming in as a bookkeeper.
Yes.
It's got to be
Okay.
somebody who is part of the religious function of the church.
The church.
But they have to have a prior. That person has to not only have a background in theology or related expertise, but they also have to have ties to the foreign church.
Okay.
So it's not only that the two churches have to have a tie, but the person should have an affiliation with generally, if it's
Yeah.
Brazil, it'd be the church in Brazil, and so there's
The denomination, the
yeah,
church
the
representing.
denomination. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, we see that a lot in our community, right, Niersen?
Right.
A lot of the Brazilian churches, and we hear that a lot. Unfortunately, that a lot of churches, not saying churches in general, but not even people at church, but a lot of people have been trying to take advantage of religious visas. But I always tell everyone, seek guidance from an attorney. Make a consultation. Because every case is different, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it didn't work out for someone else. I mean, it could work for you, but always seek legal guidance first before making any decision. The is there anything else that you like to uh, tell the audience? Anything like you like to share? What's your main advice that you give to those that are seeking employment uh, visas at the moment?
I mean, I guess just off the bat, to if you're thinking about that, to maybe have that process before you leave, before deciding to
Yes.
come to the U.S. Or if you're coming to the U.S., um, and you're thinking about that, to maybe make a consultation or talk to an attorney before you accept a job offer, before you do something that might compromise your status.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
nowadays, right?
Yeah, it would be good if we could find a way to reach, clients like in Brazil, for example,
Yes.
before they come.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have an engineering degree. I'm thinking about coming to the United
Yeah.
States. That would be ideal, so we can like advise them, like,
Yeah.
hey, you could actually come to the United States on a work visa, maybe. So like, let's work through your options. But it's challenging because most of the time they just, you know, come and
They want to get
not
here
thinking about
first.
their options.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes, that complicates the process a little bit.
Right. Right.
And so I would advise clients to just think about it clearly before, and even before that, study STEM.
Yeah.
I can't say that enough. The doors just open up for you if you
Yes.
study STEM.
Yes.
Don't study history like I did.
Yeah, or English.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's good.
yeah, no,
Great
it is
advice.
good because you have lots of opportunities. You can come on a work visa. You can apply for perm, get your
Yeah.
green card. You're gonna be paid fairly
Very
well.
well.
A lot of benefits to that. You have the ability to work from home, so definitely a good option. STEM.
And since I guess for the last 4 years we've done a lot with Zoom. So
Yeah.
if there are interested clients who are in Brazil or abroad, we give us a call. We can set up a
Yes.
conversation. It's pretty easy.
Yes. We do a lot of consultations with clients overseas
Yeah.
Mhm.
through Zoom nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, because we see a lot of people from India. They know all about the work visas.
Yeah.
They know the system, and but like I don't think Brazilians are very aware.
Aware.
Obviously we have Brazilians that come in on work visas, but
Yes.
for the most part, it's not. This information is not available to them, or like they're not aware of it.
That's
So
good.
like if we could find a way, or if you know somebody that
Yeah.
would benefit from this, let them know.
Absolutely.
Reach out.
Well, thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate all the input, the information passed on to the viewers. This is a great opportunity to spread, valid information. As we know, there's a lot of misinformation out there given out. But if you are interested in seeking a consultation, you may call the office. The number here is 508-573-3170, or you can look through us through our website, which is celadonlaw.com. I'm sure if you fill out consultation request, you'll be speaking with Dan and Yerson as well. If you're local, feel free to stop by anytime. Again, thank you, Nilsson, for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Attorney Dan, for this moment. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have other topics to talk next time.
Yeah.
I know we'd like to discuss deeper into the SIJs. Attorney Dan does a lot of the SIJ cases here at the firm. I know he'll be able to share a lot of stories and a lot of information nowadays because the laws they're very complex. But once you have attorneys and senior paralegals, be giving out the correct information, that becomes very useful for the community. Thank you again, and I hope everyone have a great week, and we'll see you again the next podcast. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.